Welcome, everybody, to the Bond Report. This is the Beta crew again, and today we're going to be talking about electric battery recycling, and also we're going to discuss car battery recycling. Because what happens to an electric battery when it can no longer power your car or your device? How do you recycle batteries, and when do you recycle them versus just throw something out? So, can you go ahead and help define for our audience what it is about recycling and what happens with recycling?
Okay, but it might be interesting, first of all, to understand what a battery is.
Okay.
A battery is a device that stores energy that can be recovered at will at a later time. And by that definition, an example of a battery would be a lake.
A lake? Like
Yes,
something I
indeed.
swim in? Like
A lake
the lady of the lake?
yes, a lake that supplies hydroelectric power. It forms a waterfall and then hits a water wheel. The water wheel turns and turns a turbine and generates electricity. And the lake replenishes itself with rainfall and so on. So by the technical sense, a lake is a battery.
Ah, interesting.
But what
And
we'll discuss,
very picturesque also.
yes, and sometimes causes sprays with rainbows in it and so on.
Oh, how lovely.
But batteries we'll discuss don't have rainbows at
No?
all.
Okay, so
Just-
what is the definition of recycling and why should people do it?
Well, the batteries we're going to talk about are storing electricity through chemistry and use of heavy metals and other components,
Okay.
and they contain metals which can be recycled for positive use, like steel and zinc, but at the same time they contain other components like nickel and cadmium and heavy metals which can be poisonous to the environment, especially when it gets into drinking water systems.
And also that beautiful blue cobalt color. Some batteries have that in it,
Well,
right?
but not something you want to put on your spaghetti.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
Okay, so basically, the process of recycling will reduce waste and minimize environmental impact so that we don't expose and put these toxic metals back into our system so that humans get exposed to it. Is that right?
Right, and as long as we started by talking about different types of batteries, from lakes to these cylindrical objects that we're used to, not all batteries are equally dangerous or requiring recycling because of built-in poisons. For example, even the garden variety batteries we're used to, the D batteries we put into flashlights and the AA batteries we put into smaller
And
devices.
some AAA batteries.
Yes, those are not exactly the same. They don't have the heavy metals like mercury, for example, which would be poisonous. So very often cities and other governmental units will not require them to be recycled. But we're concentrating on the other batteries like automobile batteries, which contain horrible, strong acids that do require recycling.
They're fine metals, but these are metals that you don't want in your drinking water.
Correct.
So,
Right.
but as far as if I did want to recycle a regular AA battery,
That could
Could
still
I?
be done,
because
yes.
they can still harvest things like zinc out of it, right?
Right.
that's
and
nice.
steel and other, yes, there are some valuables metals that could be recycled from those.
But it's not mandatory because they're not as toxic as some of these recycling batteries.
That is correct-issimo.
Okay, good. So tell me, why is it difficult to have more recycling? Why are people not doing it?
Well, as we may have discussed before, the infrastructure doesn't exist to make it easy for people.
Okay, so there's not enough ways to handle things like end of life of electric vehicle batteries or rechargeable batteries.
For your computer batteries, we are aware of places like Lowe's and the big box stores and Best Buy, which will accept these batteries and then take them off to proper places for their recycling.
Okay.
And we should have more of that for all of the batteries that we're discussing.
So batteries are just really complex with the intricate chemistry and fancy toxic metals that make it valuable because you can recycle it. But when that recycled battery is spent, then you have to actually recycle that
And we need the means
that
to do it.
rechargeable battery.
Right. We
So
can have all the good feelings in the world about what to do with it, but it has to actually exist.
and what do you think about any economic impacts?
Well, again, when you have an infrastructure set up, you create jobs of people handling the recovery of these metals and then the reuse of the metals, which would have an economic impact by making them more available and putting less pressure on the mining needs and creating new sources for these metals.
So are you saying that there's more profit to recycling than there would be to actually mining from scratch to do like either seabed mining or just regular above ground mining?
Well, it's a
type
trade-off. And what it does is to reduce the pressure to mine new sources because the old sources are available and in a trash pen somewhere.
Okay.
So,
Okay, but what do you think about the population, the consumer awareness? Why do they not participate in recycling?
well, as we've noted before with cigarette campaigns, the people, once educated and seeing the evidence, see that this phenomenon of cigarettes being harmful is true. Now we have to essentially do the same thing with batteries, that the batteries left to rot and rust in the open and to seep into the ground is also harmful. It's very similar. So when people are educated and know that there are dangers out there and to use the batteries implies a responsibility as well as the privilege of using them, then we'll make progress, and
So-
that's necessary.
So people are not doing it because they just are not aware of how to do it. They
That's
need
a
more
factor.
education. Maybe we should do some outreach campaigns, maybe have more drop-off locations in
Right.
everyday life, like at the mall or something like that.
Right,
That
when
makes
you-
it easy. Okay.
Right, it comes hand in hand with the need of the resources. That is, encourage people to do something and make sure that they are provided with the means to do it.
Okay, so why do you think there seems to be, maybe it's just an impression, but it seems that people in Europe are better at recycling than Americans are? Why
Well,
do I have that impression?
That is my impression also. This is very subjective, so it's nothing that we can actually prove. But I would guess that one reason is that Europe has been recycling and using their land for thousands of years. And so they're used to developing a system that makes it sustainable. But here in North America, where we're only here for a couple of hundred years, or a few hundred, we don't have that long range experience yet.
And minimum land.
Right, and we
Right.
think that we came here and we saw that the land was infinite, there was manifest destiny in our history which says that our western frontier is infinite, in fact.
Right. We homesteading, the more you work
Yeah.
it, the more land you get, that type of a
And
thing.
if something doesn't work out, you just leave the land and move on to new land. Well, that can't be in Europe where every inch essentially is settled. And they know this. They've done this for 1,000 years, and they're ready to keep it going for another 1,000 years. So
But
the
they also,
mindset is different.
they also have some regulations, right? They have like minimum levels of recycled content that they need to extract from electric vehicle batteries, right?
Well, that's right, but
Like
I think also
16% for cobalt, 6 for lithium, 6 for nickel.
well, what do you mean?
Well, they want to extract that by, I think there's a stipulation that by the year 2031 in Europe, they want to be able to extract at least this amount from the electric vehicle batteries. They want, during a recycling process, they want to get at least 16% of that battery should be cobalt. At least they want to extract 6% lithium and 6% nickel. Or so I've
Right.
heard. It's sort of I guess you could say it's a framework for overall industry compliance. And to do that, that's going to force the businesses to do innovation, to figure out how to do it and how to make it easy.
At the same time, again, it's an opinion and subjective. People in other countries, especially Scandinavian, think of the government as beneficial, and they are not suspicious of regulations because government seems to serve their needs with, for example,
Different
respect to-
attitude.
Yes, they see that they get health care through the government, they get education through the government at minimal cost, and so they say, oh, the government does pretty well. I give the taxes, which may be high, but look what I'm getting.
Good point. Good point.
And
Like even with mortgages, over here we sort of look at bankers as, oh no, they're going to try and take my home away. But over in some European and Scandinavian countries, they actually look at the banker as a family friend and invite them over for holidays because they know that they're collaborative. You
well,
know,
maybe more towards that. I wouldn't say that there are no crooks in Europe,
well,
but but the overall
there might
attitude
be a
is
crook one.
that the government is there to provide services that large groups, namely the country itself, can provide that individuals cannot. An example of that is roads. You don't expect individuals to build their own roads.
Right.
But the whole county or the city or the country can, and that extends to other services like health and education,
Right.
which in
Being able to
United
get to
States,
someplace.
yeah,
Mail
is-
delivery. You need a road to
Right.
deliver mail.
and if it weren't in our Constitution, we might have privatized mail delivery all the time.
But it is in our Constitution, so the
That's what
United
happens.
States Post Office should be here to
Right.
stay. So tell me about what people in the private and maybe public areas are doing in order to help with recycling. Do you have any examples?
Well, I hear that Tesla, or at least J.B. Straubel, founder of Tesla, and Redwood's Material Company are focusing on reclaiming and recycling used cells from various sources,
Mm-hmm.
recovering up to 95% of critical materials.
95%. Really?
Right, so that's pretty
Wow.
efficient.
Wow. What about car companies like Land Rover, Jaguar? Jaguar and Land
Yes.
Rover, I think, are now the same company.
They're in the forefront
Mm-hmm.
of creating and testing battery cells. Plus, by the way, trying to research new kinds of batteries, which we won't even touch on because that's in the future. But there is a lot of research that's being pointed towards brand new batteries,
Mm-hmm.
more efficient than Lakes or the ion lithium batteries that we're using now.
Yeah, like the Jaguar I-Pace. I think that's a electric vehicle, right?
Right.
That they're trying to deal with that. But there's also, what is it, Northvolt over in Europe? They try and
Yeah.
use recycled nickel, cobalt, and manganese in its new batteries.
Right, those are materials and metals that are getting very difficult to find. So mining it is becoming less and less reliable, especially if there are political problems. So recycling is another good source.
But there's also this company called Zero Pollution Motors, I believe, and they have a compressed air mechanism to make their cars go. So they kind of sort of skip the whole battery
Well,
thing.
I-
I don't know exactly the intricacies of it, of how the compressed air car works.
Well, that
But-
fits into our definition of battery. It's a device that stores energy that you can recover later.
Mm-hmm.
And compressed air, we've all seen, if in a balloon, for example, that's a battery of sorts. If you pop a battery, you hear an explosion and the air comes out and the
Mm-hmm.
energy is used. Not necessarily in a positive way there, but you store the energy in a balloon by
Mhm.
blowing it up, poke it with a pin, energy dissipates.
Yeah, and AirPod 2.0, their compressed air-powered car. They say gasoline is already a fuel of the past, and the search is on, but what will the fuel of the future be? Zero Pollution Motors thinks it will be compressed air.
Uh-huh.
So that's what they have. Their abbreviation is ZPM for Zero Pollution Motors. So anyway, they're a new little company, and well, actually, I think they've been around for a while, but they make the cutest little cars. They look like toys, but I think they actually work.
But that's right. When you release the energy or recover the energy from this battery, what we have seen in the last 100 or so years with fossil fuels is the release of energy, namely by burning,
Mm-hmm.
actually produces poisons along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so compressed air doesn't produce that. And so
But there's other places in the world that are making a concerted effort to recycle. Like in Singapore, they have a TESAM, which is in the one of the largest facilities in Southeast Asia for lithium ion battery recycling.
mm,
So and then of course those directives in Europe, right?
the regulations.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Right.
yeah, they're saying that there's such a demand for batteries globally that they think that the need is going to increase something like by 14 times in the near future by 2030. So they think that the European Union is only going to take like 17% of that demand. So the demand for batteries is really going up everywhere.
Well, if you see the freeway in Los Angeles at any time 5 o'clock rush hour, and then imagine every one of those cars stalled on the freeway
Oh,
has
yeah.
not one but a bank of batteries. That is a lot of batteries.
So it's really like an exponential growth. So ironically, you want something that can recharge to help ecology and the environment, but then you have this problem of needing to recycle this thing, which is now toxic at the end of its recharged life.
When
Battery,
it's no
yeah.
longer useful, right?
Unless we go to something completely different, like, I don't know, the details of hydrogen or compressed air or whatnot. But it looks like there's a lot of people who do want to make certain, I guess, goals by 2030, 2025, all of that. But I'm glad there's a lot of people who are actively working on addressing this now for recycling. But what do you think we could tell people are the advantages of recycling a battery? Like, if you could just list a couple of points, what do you think would be an advantage that you could share?
Actually, it's a good point to recapitulate. We mentioned that it reduces environmental impact, preventing these poison materials from entering into the water systems once they're put into landfills or wherever they're disposed of. In fact, some factories will even dispose of these horrible chemicals directly right into a nearby river.
What?
But that's one thing that can be mitigated or avoided. We conserve our natural resources because we don't have to freshly mine lithium again and again when we can just reclaim it's already there in a spent unit. And it also supports what we would call the circular economy, which means that the materials that we use are recycled continuously and that we don't go to outside sources. Well, of course we do, but we minimize our dependence.
Right. And having a circular economy means different types of new jobs are created, and there's new ways that businesses can actually make a profit on that. Right. They don't have to keep mining to make a profit. They can actually make a profit through that whole recycling thing, which we talked about in a previous episode. So you want to align with regulatory requirements. You want to embrace new innovations with green technology.
Which already is very good for the economy when you become innovative and find something that your customers would like and international markets would like to take advantage of that. It can only be a plus.
Sure. But let's switch over now and say average person in small town USA, they look around their house or their apartment and they say, but I don't know exactly what I need to recycle. So how can that everyday person know when to recycle, whether it's a battery or anything else? They can go to Earth 911. Exactly.
The website that answers these questions, and of course that is generally updated because that's going to be enhanced as time goes on.
And how do you use the website?
Well, type what you're looking for to recycle and your zip code in their search boxes, and they'll
press
tell
search.
You. Right. So you go to the site and then essentially follow the menu instructions.
So they have a bunch of different categories, and within those categories, they actually have subcategories. So you can see exactly if what your object is needs to be recycled. So for example, some of the categories have to do with the automotive area, something in your car, regular batteries, what needs to be recycled versus not, construction elements, electronics, things in your garden, glass, hazardous materials, household items, metals, paint, paper, and plastics. And there's even places like in Riverside County that are drop-off centers which accept over 100 items on Agua Mamsa Road.
We should rename that, recall what that site is again.
The Earth 911. Earth 911 is a great website.
Yeah,
it's just earth911.com. And the thing is that there are some things here that some people may not even realize they need to recycle, like an adhesive, empty and full aerosol cans. Think of hairspray and spray paint. What about Blu-ray players, boom boxes?
A lot of electronic devices which are obsolete now still have valuable minerals in them.
Right, right. And those
Chemical, copper, even
dime-shaped,
gold, yes.
dime-shaped little circle batteries. What are they called? Button cell batteries? Is it? Yeah.
A lot of names for that.
They can go in because you don't want to release the poison.
They look like dimes, yes. It's a whole new configuration, but very popular.
Calculators, cassette players, CD players, cell phones, your old chemistry set, computers, CRT televisions.
The old monitors, right.
DVD players.
All the electronics.
Fertilizers, like from what you have in your garden, or old fire extinguishers, and those long pole-shaped fluorescent tubes that you have in your ceiling that have burnt out. Your old game consoles, hair dye, even hairspray, herbicides, home electronics, your old inkjet cartridges, kerosene, lacquer, lighter fluid, just so many different things, even medicinal sharps.
Yeah, go to earth911.com and find out how much need there might be for it. How easy it would be to get it. Printers,
typewriters,
batteries,
VCRs, zinc carbon batteries, all that. But the other thing which is kind of nice is that, did you know that on Earth 911 they've partnered with Yellow Tin, and they offer a service to help decarbonize your home overall. That's basically finding out an action plan just for you and your home to see how you can take advantage of a lot of the government, both state, local, and some agencies that have wanted to offer incentives to people to do green energy. So you just enter a couple of things. You go to earth911.yellowtin.com, set up to register, and you talk about your home, some of your personal energy needs, and then you get a personalized plan. And it'll include state, local, and federal green incentives to help you save even more. So because Yellow Tin, it's a home clean energy shopping platform. They use an algorithm that hones in on your zip code in order to find out what money you can make locally for you. And then they give you different gradings.
So it's a good resource, right?
So what are your final thoughts on this topic?
Well, we all want clean vehicles and want to minimize fossil fuels, but that means that we need clean energy sources and sustainable end of life for these batteries and components. So it brings into account more responsibilities if we want this new way or new wave of technology. So we know there's research going on for local battery recycling programs, drop-off points. They're developing, they're increasing, and we should support companies that use recycled materials, like Patagonia, for example. We've discussed that before. And we want strong policies, or want the citizens to be encouraged or educated to do this.
Well, I think that wraps up our topic for today. So thank you. I think that was really insightful. It was a lot of fun to talk about. And I want to talk to our audience to say thank you so much for joining us on this bond report. I'm sure you'll get your regular voices back shortly. But remember that together we can power the future responsibly. And until next time, you got to stay green. And as Joe Bond always says on the bond, until we bond again. And of course, we're going to be putting all of those links that we were talking about into the show notes. And so check those out for later. See you next time.
Okay, great.